What is manga? Let's find out together. Welcome back to Book Break. I'm Emma, your friendly comic books novice. More and more these days I hear people falling in love with graphic novels and comic books. In particular, manga is so popular. Even Bande Dessinee, which is the French-Belgian version, is getting really popular. So I decided it was high time I did some research. So now that I have spent several hours reading everything the internet has to offer about these various different graphic novel traditions, as well as talking to Elle, the other half of the Book Break team, who is a bit of a manga expert and has taught me a lot, I am now going to tell you everything I have found out. And we are going to start with the basics, i.e. what is a graphic novel? So a graphic novel is a book. It can be fiction, it can be non-fiction, it can be anthologies. Don't worry too much about the novel part. The key part is it's made up of comics. The term comic book is more generally used if you're talking about comics periodicals, whereas a graphic novel contains the whole story beginning to end. But these terms are not super strictly defined, so you will see them used interchangeably. That's just kind of how I would differentiate them. And the stereotype that you most likely think of when you hear about comics is that they are all about superheroes. But really that is just one genre, one subgenre really. Graphic novels can be about anything. For example, 12% Dread by Emily McGovern is an upcoming graphic novel. This is going to be a comedy story about female friendship in our increasingly anxious, tech-obsessed world. No superheroes there. Dan and Sam by Mark Watson and Oliver Harrod is a story about grief and about moving on from relationships. There's a bit of magic in that one, but still no superheroes. I've also got Pumpkinheads here by Rainbow Rowell, which is a YA love story set on a pumpkin patch. It's at Halloween, no superheroes. So you get the idea. Graphic novels is a broad umbrella term. And so what is manga? Well, I've got a stack here to show you. Simply, manga are comics or graphic novels originating from Japan. And the first thing that you might notice as a Western reader when picking up manga is that they are read from right to left. And so you start at what would be the back of the book for Western readers. And then each page is read from right to left. Popular manga is often adapted into anime, which is Japanese animation. Anime would be a whole other video, so let's just stick to printed manga today. But just a heads up that you will find a lot of anime adaptations on Netflix, and some are even getting like big budget movie adaptations. So if you pick up a manga and fall in love with it, chances are you will soon be able to see it on the big screen, if not already. In Japan, manga are typically released on a weekly or monthly basis, chapter by chapter, in manga magazines, and then popular manga would get collected together into volumes like this called tankobon. And then a lot of manga series are really long running, so you would then have several tankobon. You can see here that this is volume 1. One Piece is a really long running and really popular manga that has 101 tankobon. Manga has specific target groups by age and gender. Any reader can read any manga they would like, but you will notice manga being particularly targeted, particularly marketed at different demographics. So for example, shonen and shoujo is manga targeted specifically at teen and tween boys and girls. Seinen versus josei is manga aimed at adult men versus adult women, and then there's even manga aimed at very young children, and that is called kodomomuke. I hope I have pronounced all of that right. I did practice. And then as well as the different demographics, you also get loads and loads of genres and subgenres within manga. So for example, you can get historical manga like Vagabond, which is an epic martial arts series set in the 1600s. There are romance manga, for example, My Love Mix-Up, which has got this great love triangle, and it's a proper love triangle. A guy has a crush on a girl, who has a crush on a guy, who thinks that this guy has a crush on him, and then maybe he actually does. You can read horror manga like the Tokyo Ghoul series, which features ghouls that feast on human flesh. Absolutely horrifying, and you may have seen the anime adaptation of this on Netflix. One of the most famous manga series that I'm sure a lot of you will have heard of is Sailor Moon. This is fantasy manga, and it also fits into the magical girl subgenre, which is very popular within manga. Contemporary manga includes things like My Brother's Husband, which is about a man who gets a visit from the husband of his estranged brother, who has recently passed away, and he's forced to confront the fact that his own homophobia is part of what caused the estrangement. There's a growing trend for lifestyle manga. Even Marie Kondo has a manga, the life-changing manga of Tidying Up, which is a combination of a fictional story with Marie Kondo's famous tidying advice. And then just to come full circle to what I was saying earlier, you can get superhero manga. My Hero Academia is really popular right now. It's set in a world where superpowers are common, but it follows a boy who doesn't have any. However, he still dreams of becoming a superhero, and so he enlists in a school where you go to train to become a superhero. So you should be getting the impression by now that there are as many types of manga as there are types of book, so you really cannot generalize, but there are some features that you might expect to find when you pick up manga. For example, over-exaggeration is a big part of manga, whether it's over-exaggerated art or over-exaggerated humor or over-exaggerated situations. You'll also find that most manga conform to an art style that was developed in the 19th century, and most manga are in black and white, but you can get some special colour editions. As far as I understand, it is fairly common to find trans characters in manga, but there is some debate over how good the representation is there, but it's still interesting that potentially there are more trans characters in manga than we find in Western graphic novels. Booktubers who talk a lot about manga include Mama Loves Manga, Mangatama, and Starlet Enjoys, so I will link to all three of their channels below if you want to go and get the best up-to-date manga recommendations. So that was a whistle-stop tour of manga, but then I fell down a new internet rabbit hole discovering Webtoons, which are a really popular form of Korean digital art. And these are different from manga or manhwa, which was the Korean version of manga, in that they are often fan-made, they're free to read, and they are designed to be read on your computer or your smartphone. So they are in colour, they are read vertically instead of right to left, and they have become so popular in Korea that they've actually largely replaced manhwa entirely. And then let's jump around the globe again. What is Bande Dessinee? So these are the French and Belgian versions, and these are countries that have a long tradition in comics that's separate from the English language comics tradition. And I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of these. Tintin, Asterix, and the Smurfs all originate from Bande Dessinee. And there's a lot of respect that comes for creators of Bande Dessinee. You'll find bookshops in France and Belgium that have whole sections dedicated to auteurs, who are particularly revered comics creators. Bande Dessinee, or BDs, tend to be collections of shorter narratives that sort of run into each other with no clear beginnings or ends, so quite different from some of the longer narratives in the English language graphic novels that I've mentioned. And if I don't stop talking soon, I'm going to run out of breath, so I'm going to stop there, but I hope you've enjoyed my deep dive into graphic novels from around the world, which honestly only just scratched the surface. So do put your own recommendations in the comments below of your favourite graphic novels and which part of the world they come from, and other traditions I haven't mentioned in this video, because there are so many more. I will also link here to a video I made before on the best graphic novels to read if you've never ever picked one up before, so click through and have a watch, and I'll see you next time.